Hello and welcome to Supernatural Files. It's a very cold morning, autumn morning, and what better way to start than with Halloween? Halloween is approaching us now, and it's a lovely time of the year. Halloween means All Hallowed. It goes back to Celtic times. It was a pagan festival which they used to celebrate. They used to believe that the veil between the two worlds, between the 31st and the 1st of November, was at its thinnest. And this is when the spirits were around them more than ever. And those that had passed that year could go on into the other world. It was a very good time of year because it's when they brought the harvest in. Some of the harvest was given as offerings for the wandering spirits. The other thing they used to do was guising, which was dressing up in costumes. This, they believed, would stop the spirits from seeing them. As they were disguised, the spirits could not see them. Lots of food was eaten. They would tie apples to evergreen branches, and it was a big, long festival. Everyone loves a ghost story at Halloween, and we have many to tell. Recently, we filmed at the Devil's Bridge on, believe it or not, Spooky Lane, as the residents call it, and all the locals. It's one of the most spooky places in the whole of Hertfordshire. Lots of sightings of ghosts. Anyway, we went to film there and things didn't go to plan. The cameraman said, as he was filming me, all he could see was makeup all over my face that the Celts used to wear. That was a bit unnerving. I couldn't remember anything I was supposed to do there. I just felt really unnerving. I've had lots of different experiences, and this was up there with not so nice. Also, while we were there was different sounds and things, and we did a whole take, and when we played it back, it had completely disappeared. Anyway, take a look and see what you think. I've arrived here at Devil's Bridge, and to be quite honest, even walking up the hill here with the sloping sides, it's very foreboding and it sends shivers. The temperature's much cooler here and I don't feel alone. I understand what us locals feel about this place, as I don't live that far away. Would I come here at night? Certainly not. Would I come here alone? Certainly not. There's lots of ghost stories here. Lots of the monks from Asridge House have been seen disappearing down here, and also Roman soldiers with all their full gear on. It's a very strange feeling. I'm actually quite cold. I've even forgotten to take my shades off, and I always take them off. So I'm just going to have a look under the bridge. I can honestly say this is one of the chilliest places I've been to. Yeah, I think if you want a spooky Halloween, well, this is certainly the place to come. So I don't think you'll be on your own. But coming here is so different. You can feel it and you can hear it. Everything echoes and it's quite strange. Actually, I think I've had enough. It's a very cold autumn day. Halloween, our scariest time of the year, the festival we all love. What's it all about? Do you ever wonder where it all comes from? Look at these wonderful pumpkins. Where did they come from? The cats, the witches, the bats, the vampires, the werewolves, the ghosts, the scary stories. Let's find out, shall we? Welcome to our home with our Halloween display. Where did pumpkins originate from? Pumpkins were originally from Ireland back in the 19th century, where they were called jack-o'-lanterns. But they weren't the pumpkins as we know today, these beautiful big pumpkins. They were normally turnips, and they were made with grotesque faces on them. And they were put in windows and on doorsteps to ward off the evil spirits. The Celts celebration lasted 3 days. It was a very big celebration, and it was called Samhain. Later on, again in the 19th century, it became Christian, and the Catholics used to do a ceremony. They would worship their saints and dress up as saints and martyrs. Halloween means All Hallows Eve. The costumes, as we said, it was called guising. It originally was for poor people and children. They would go door to door, and as they went about, they would say poems and sing songs and were given money or some food. And in return, they would say prayers and bless the loved ones that had passed. Well, the Celts wore costumes, as we know. They wore animal skins and they wore animal faces that were quite scary. Nothing like the ones that we have today. But let me show you some of our ancestors and what they used to wear. This one in particular, oh my goodness, if these children came to your house on Halloween, I think you'd give them a treat pretty quick and make them leave. Halloween is such a fun time of the year, and there's lots and lots of ghost stories with Halloween. So where did the bats come from and the vampires? Well, we all know Bram Stoker's 1897 book, but it goes back further than that. Yes, it goes back to Greek times, the ancient Greeks. And also werewolves. We think of the same time, but no, that goes back to the ancient Greeks as well. And what else do we think of at Halloween? Crows, witches, black cats, ghosts. Well, the black cats, the Celts believed they were people turned into black cats by the devil because they had been bad in life. The crows, again, this goes back to the ancient Greek time, to the mythology, one to do with Apollo, one to do with Athena, both when they had bad news from the crows, and the crow was turned black, never to be white again. I love crows. And also owls. Well, owls are night creatures, so therefore they're quite spooky, especially this time of the year when they call to each other, the male and the female call to each other. All these things you see, they all come from way back. The bats and vampires. Well, you think again of Bram Stoker, but no, bats go much further back. Again, to Greek mythology. The vampire bats, you see, they draw blood, so that's where that comes from. Witches. Well, witches were well women that used to help the villagers by giving them herbs and potions. It wasn't till much later that we have this version of them as being evil and bad and the terrible witch trials and things like that. Now we put pointy hats on and big noses, but that's far from how it originated. And if you look at my display, you've got ghostly things and beautiful pumpkins, trick-or-treating. It's such good fun. And there's also a story that's just coming out, will be on telly soon, the ghostly going on of the grave of Karl Marx. All kinds of things happen at the Highgate Cemetery. There are so many ghostly stories that you can tell and scare people at Halloween. Everyone knows of the headless rider, but have you heard of the headless horses? Well, two such ghost stories. One at Asridge House, where a rider goes through past the old Roman road really, really fast, and the horse is headless in dark, dark blue. A similar story as at Pendlay Manor, which is just literally a few miles away. This time it's a horse and carriage, and the horses again are headless, and they go ferociously up to the old manor house, and this is on New Year's Eve. We are going to be telling you lots more stories to whet your appetite. What about the Roman soldiers? They've been spotted so many times. The ghostly figures of Roman soldiers in full uniform, marching through on the old streets and then mysteriously disappearing through the walls. Well, the Romans have quite a lot to do with Halloween. We all know when we feel a cauldron or a big bowl full of apples. Did you know that the humble apple was brought over by the Romans? When they came over here and invaded us, they brought the apple tree. It was very important to them because it was part of their celebration, and also it was an offering for the goddess Pomona, the goddess of plenty. They mingled the two religions and the two festivals together, the Celts and the Roman festival. A lovely story about apple bobbing is a romantic one, where the girl would name her beloved, she would say his name out loud and then bob for an apple. If she got the first apple, well, that was a match made in heaven. If it was a second attempt, that was still okay. But if it took 3 attempts to bite into that apple, then the marriage wasn't going to be. It's so interesting, all these stories. There's more and more that we can't have time to tell you today. But you think of Halloween, you think just back to the Americans when it started in the 1930s. But we now know it goes much, much, much further back. What we're going to do in future episodes of Paranormal Things is we're going to bring lots of ghost stories, tell our own stories. We're going to have other people telling their stories. We'd love to hear from everybody their stories so we can see if we've got similar versions of ghost sightings and where the spookiest place is. And we're also going to be filming at night when it's really scary. So whether you're a believer, a non-believer, or you sit on that fence, it's going to be fascinating and exciting. So whatever you're doing this Halloween, however you're spending it, all over the world people celebrate Halloween. There's very different versions with different cultures. The ATRs, they celebrate voodoo by zombies, people walking along the street half dead. That's very scary. And then everyone knows the famous Mexican festival, a long festival, the Festival of the Dead. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the same thing, which is the celebration of the dead. So all it leaves me to say is I hope you all have a very, very happy Halloween.